Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grower Supply Greenhouses versus High Tunnels webinar. I would like to introduce Kathleen Osgood, one of our Senior National Account Managers here. Today, she will explain the differences between greenhouses and high tunnels and the advantages that these structures can provide to your home or business. Kathleen specializes in greenhouse and high tunnel sales and can be a great resource for you. If any of you have any questions that are not answered today, I urge you to contact her directly. Before we get started, if you do have a question during the presentation, please send it in using the chat or question and answer features on your screen. We'll have a question and answer session immediately following the presentation, during which Kathleen will answer all of your questions on greenhouses and high tunnels. I'll now hand the mic over to Kathleen and we'll get started. Thanks for joining us.
Hi folks, this is Kathleen. Hopefully you are all going to enjoy this presentation. We'll keep it brief. I know many of you are taking some time off of work, but thank you for joining, and hopefully I'm able to answer all of your questions. This little photo here actually shows outdoor growing, but in a raised bed, which we will touch on a bit later. That's an option for inside some high tunnels. But welcome aboard, and we'll get started. So here we have some interior shots. The one on the left is actually one of our new facilities in Iowa at our warehouse. You can see the hydroponic NFT channels in use, and then to the right, a lovely high tunnel. So I'm a big fan of the locally grown movement. So as more and more folks are interested in greenhouses, I'm happy to help you, pick which model is going to be most suitable for you. A little bit about us. We are actually the leading manufacturer of greenhouses and high tunnels in the country, which is pretty neat. The greenhouse business is actually relatively new. We've been selling structures, our tension fabric structures, for ages, but the greenhouse line is relatively new, and we love it. There's a lot of really passionate growers on staff. We've got a learning center in Iowa. We've got a greenhouse set up in Connecticut, so we practice what we preach, and we all have quite a bit of experience. So it's a really good time. We've been in business since 1979. Barry, our owner, still comes to work every day, keeps us in line. You can see his photo on the inside front cover of all of our catalogs, but it's a great little company. All right, so let's get down to business now. What is a greenhouse and what is a high tunnel? So for those of you who are seasoned growers, you probably know the difference. Those of you just starting out, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. A greenhouse, by the name, is typically a structure which is going to afford you all year growing. That means you will be able to grow tomatoes in the winter if you so choose. A greenhouse is something that you're going to typically heat and cool to control temperatures in order to grow all year round. So for instance, if you're in North Dakota trying to grow tomatoes, you're going to need to be running lighting and heating, etc. You're going to do that in a greenhouse. A high tunnel, on the other hand, is essentially the little sister of a greenhouse. Its intention is to extend a growing season that already exists. So for instance, if you can plant tomatoes in April, where you're currently located, a high tunnel will give you 2 to 3 weeks on the front end. You can get into the ground a couple weeks before your neighbors, and it will also extend the season on the back end. Generally, high tunnel growers do not heat or cool their structure, generally. Every now and then we'll have people put a backup heater just in case for that exact example, an early season of tomatoes, just to prevent getting too cold. But for the most part, high tunnels are passively ventilated, whereas a greenhouse is actively ventilated, so for instance with exhaust fans and circulating fans. Typically in a high tunnel, folks are growing directly into the ground, as you can see in the picture, or also in raised beds. In a greenhouse, you're generally going to see benching systems or potentially hydroponic systems. So that's just a little bit of background. Now, Grower Supply does a number of different size greenhouses. And we'll touch on this a bit later. The top photo you see there is a really popular retail house called the Clearview Greenhouse. It is covered with a corrugated polycarbonate. So this is actually a bit of a hybrid between a high tunnel and a greenhouse, and I don't mean to confuse anybody, but I'll tell you why I call it a hybrid. Corrugated polycarbonate is a single-ply material. It's very strong. It has a 10-year warranty, but it's not to be confused with 8mm polycarbonate. Many of you have seen the twin-wall polycarbonates. So rather than a single-ply, twin-wall is a double-ply, and that space between the two layers creates a dead air space. That's what's going to give you R value. So the Clearview house in the top right is a beautiful house. It's very strong, but it's great for a presentation house. You can get, you see the hanging baskets in there. Would I want to pay to heat that all winter in the Dakotas? Probably not. There's more suitable options. The model there down on the bottom is one of our new pro-solar greenhouses. This is actually a photo of our Iowa research facility. It's beautiful. I love it with the lights on there. But you'll notice those big exhaust fans for ventilation. You can't see inside, but we have heaters running. That's a full-year production house there. We offer both freestanding units, like at the top picture, or a gutter connect unit, like the bottom picture, where they share a common wall there. Gutter connects are very, very popular in the Pacific Northwest. I think they're gaining in popularity for folks who are trying to cover a large area. They're not suitable for all climates, but certainly we can talk about your needs. And then in terms of who we service, just about everybody at this point. If you're not already on our catalog list, call me and I'll mail you one. If you are, you know that we have both hobby-specific houses, which are very small, all the way up to the big commercial engineered greenhouses. So we have just about anything to suit you. Okay, the Majestic greenhouse, I'm going to talk about some specific models here just in terms of what's a good seller for us, and they're popular for good reason. The Majestic is one of our tried and true. This has been in the catalog for ages. You'll notice it has a nice interior truss package on that right-hand photo, excellent for hanging baskets. Also excellent for snow if you get a lot of weather. That provides a tremendous amount of strength to the structure overall. This model also has a very tall sidewall, as you can see in the top inset picture. This is popular in production houses. We do have some folks use them as retail spaces as well. In terms of cost per square foot, not the cheapest. However, they're lovely when they're finished. You can purchase them in a number of ways, too. At the bottom bullet point, you can see we can either provide a double layer of film with an inflation blower, or we can do polycarbonate roof, which is that twin wall material that I told you about. The benefit, again, of the polycarbonates is that they have a fantastic warranty. They have a 10-year warranty, whereas the plastics, the film products, are replaced typically every 4 to 5 years. They do have a 4-year warranty. But over time, the UV begins to degrade them, so you'll be replacing. That said, the film top is significantly less expensive. So for a startup, a lot of folks will begin with the film covering, and you can always refit it down the line. So the first slide, we showed the Majestic in the single bay. Here she is again in a gutter connect style. So again, they're just sharing that common interior wall. We can do 2 bays, we can do 3 bays. Heck, we could go 4 bays if you wanted. It's entirely up to you. As a manufacturer, we can ultimately make just about anything. I don't love gutter connect greenhouses in terrifically high snow load areas. However, we do offer engineered solutions. So if you have your heart set on one, we can absolutely furnish it. It just requires a bit more support, again, because it's sharing that common wall. We need to plan on what we're going to do to handle snow. All right. Here are some great photos of a more hobby-specific line that we carry. These are called our Elite and Backyard Pro houses. These are great for institutions, hospitals, schools, the backyard hobby grower. They're even becoming very popular as little retail houses for commercial growers. They're incredibly easy to build. They have a great warranty, and we sell a ton of them. So these have really taken off in the last few years. There are comparable models on the market that you can get from other retailers. What I will tell you is we have the best warranty. We offer a 10-year frame and materials warranty, so that both the frame and the polycarbonate is warranted 10 years. So this model here, I have, again, a variety of sizes from 6 foot wide to 12 foot wide, multiple lengths. We have the white frame, which is the elite. It has that decorative finial. And then we have the green frame as well, all aluminum frames. Again, call me if you have any interest in these. I have a number of sizes to choose from. So the fun part, accessories. There's really no discussion about a greenhouse without getting down to what runs the greenhouse. So I'll get some novice growers, they call and they say, I want a greenhouse. Well, it's one thing to purchase the structure itself. It's an entirely different thing to get the greenhouse so that it functions for you, and that's a really important thing. We are very, very good about asking the right questions to ensure that what we're offering you is going to make your growing season work for you. So, for instance, do we need benches in the system, or will you be growing in the ground? How are we going to irrigate the system? We offer both overhead, we offer drip, we have weeper hoses. How are we going to cool the greenhouse? Many of the models come with roll-up sides for passive ventilation, but in the extreme heat of the summer, we still are going to need to run some fans to ensure adequate airflow. How are we going to heat it? Again, we can take your volume of air and based on your coldest outside temperature and your target inside temperature, tell you exactly the number of BTUs that you need to maintain the temperatures. So we're very, very good at making sure the greenhouse is spec'd correctly, and I cannot stress the importance of that enough. You know, we talk a lot to folks this time of year who want to start seeds, and germinating seeds can sometimes come down to a 10-degree temperature differential. If you're not in that temperature range, you're not successful. That's a big deal, especially if you're trying to do this commercially, and we want to be there to make sure we've got it right. So, again, that was a very brief overview of greenhouses. So again, full-year production houses, we can service hydroponics, tabletops, etc. Now we're going to move into high tunnels, which, as I mentioned before, are for season extension. I am a big high tunnel fan. I actually have a couple myself, really productive. I pretty well rest them in the winter. I don't do much in the winter at all. These have been used largely by sort of organic niche farmers in the last couple of years, but they're really gaining in popularity because there have been some grant programs promoting them. So where the greenhouse was covered with a double layer of film or a polycarbonate, again, the high tunnel has a single layer of film. Otherwise, the frames are very, very similar. It's that single layer of film that makes the difference. It offers you protection from overhead heavy rains. It offers you increased temperatures early in the season. It's a great way to cover a large area for not very much money. Alrighty. So generally speaking, we're seeing high tunnels used for vegetable production. That's the largest market. In recent years, after a couple of studies done by Cornell University, there are now a number of people doing raspberries and blueberries under tunnels. Apparently, yields were better, just crops overall health was better, and I think we're going to continue to see more and more acreage under plastic is the term with high tunnels because of the production capacity. What a tunnel does for you is offers you a few degrees of temperature protection, but it's really from I would say, heavy wind, heavy rain. You all probably have experience where if you are growing tomatoes and you get a heavy rain close to harvest and you get that awful splitting on the tomatoes. Same with strawberries, you can just trash a crop. So it's a really inexpensive way to cover those crops for you, make sure they're protected. High tunnel designs, we have many. In the last few slides, you've seen some with straight sides. You've seen some that are rounded. Here is a lovely photo of what's called our Pro Solar Star. This is a newish model in the last 3 years now with a very tall sidewall. We've got a 6-foot sidewall. You can see in the photos here that they've been using it for for lettuce production. We have a lot of folks doing indeterminate tomatoes in these models because of the high side. It really gives you a lot of usable space. So the Pro Solar models are just lovely. They can be mounted to concrete or directly to the ground. Typically, high tunnels are going to just be soil mounted, but every now and then folks will put them on concrete. You can see an interior photo on the right there. This customer opted for an optional support package. See up in the truss, those additional supports up in the peak of the building. They have a heavy snow and wind climate there, so they wanted to sort of beef up the structure a little bit. And again, some more accessories. Again, typically in a high tunnel, we're not running fans, we're not running heaters. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to irrigate, and that's important. Anytime you're covering an area with a greenhouse or a high tunnel, you are essentially creating a desert environment. Rain's not falling inside the high tunnel. So it's up to you to provide the water and the nutrients that maybe the soil lacks, but again, you're not getting any water. Micro-irrigation, drip irrigation is incredibly common. It's very inexpensive. You can do a large area. The top photo shows drip irrigation. You see it laid out on the rows there. The water, it's a low-flow system. It just slowly weeps out of the hose. The second photo, that's more considered micro-irrigation. So you have 3/4-inch lines with micro-tubing teed off of them into the pots directly. Again, we can service both. It's just personal preference. We also offer ground covers and weed block materials. One of the benefits of a greenhouse and high tunnel is that it can improve your growing conditions. Well, just as your tomatoes thrive, so do your weeds. So ground cover becomes immensely important so it's not crowding your target crops. And then also we carry shade panels as well as deer fencing. Shade material is of utmost importance with greenhouses and tunnels in high solar gain climates, prevents sun scorch, also keeps the temperatures from getting too extreme. So we can tout our benefits a bit more here. We are American made. That's huge for a lot of folks. Our steel is even American made. You don't find that much very often anymore. We buy domestic steel. We bend it ourselves. We do all the welds ourselves. It's very high quality. Another thing to point out is that all of our models come with anchors. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is. I have folks that will put together quotes for them and they may not use us, and then they call us for anchoring later. A lot of the packages on the market, unfortunately, are not all inclusive. We do a really good job of making sure you have everything from in the ground all the way up to your fans, to your benches, et cetera. Make sure you're turnkey. Just to give you a bit more insight, that's another photo on the bottom left of the Clearview model with the corrugated polycarbonate. And then the top right is a farm out of Georgia. You're going to see a Connect-A-Bay tunnel. So again, it's just got the single layer of film for season extension. Now here's the fun part. When you pick your dream tunnel or greenhouse, we can finance you. It doesn't matter if you're a business or an individual. We have plans available for both, and we're interest-free. That's huge. A lot of you will be buying these for production purposes, so you'll be selling the produce here in a few months. Well, we understand that it is an investment up front. We also understand that you're going to be making your money back. So we can offer 6-month terms where we will literally just ship you the structure, and you pay us in full at the end of 6 months. If you're the type of person that wants a bit more structure, no worries. You can make monthly payments to us, and then we can extend the term up to 2 years. So we're pretty easy to work with that way as well. And here is a slide with my information. Again, that is just a very brief overview of the differences. I am happy to talk with you on a one-on-one basis on some of the specifics, what you can do in each house, et cetera. My extension, again, is 244, and I'm also highly accessible by email, so please, whenever you're thinking a question, just drop me a line or give me a call. And we're going to pause for just a moment and get ready for the Q&A section, so please go ahead and start sending questions in. All right, so we have our first few questions coming through. Keep them coming. Number 1 from George, is FarmTech the manufacturer of ClearSpan buildings? Yes, George, we are. ClearSpan is essentially the brand name of our structure, so you'll notice we have ClearSpan buildings, clear span high tunnels, and we are the manufacturer of them all. We have another question from Heidi. Hi, I'm wondering about the high tunnels with high wind gusts and snow loads in winter. Okay, it looks like you're in Alaska, Heidi. Yes, in fact, we do a number of high tunnels for the NRCS client base up in Alaska. And in fact, I've worked with the state agronomist. Please email me after this seminar, but I had made some recommendations to him regarding rafter spacing and support packages, but absolutely we can meet your needs. All right, we have a question from John. Does the NRCS also allow and pay for solar covers? Not that I know of yet, John. Really the best option is to talk to your NRCS agent. For those of you who tuned in a little late, the NRCS is the National Resource Conservation Service. It is a branch of the USDA, and they have recently had some wonderful programs to cost share the price of a new tunnel with growers. They're really trying to encourage locally grown food. It's a wonderful program. At this time, though, I'm not aware of any solar cover structure. All right, I have another question from John. What is the difference between the Pro Solar and the Premium Round? That's a great question. The Premium Round tunnel is one of the longest selling structures of our lineup. It is a rounded style frame. It has 4-foot rafter spacing, comes with a roll-up side and zippered end walls. Again, that's the Premium Round. The Pro Solar model is a straight sidewall model which terminates in a peaked roof. Again, Pro Solar has a straight sidewall to a peaked roof. The Pro Solar models are also sold a la carte, so you have a lot of options regarding what cover you would like, if I'm dropping the sides or rolling them up. Ends are also sold separately. So the Pro Solar is really popular for folks who might want to mix and match some features. The Premium Round is very popular for folks that want to buy a full kit. I have another question here. Do you have a way to get the rainwater? Yes, Melanie, that is a fantastic question. The best way currently to get the rainwater is to run a gutter. And if it is a gutter purchased at Home Depot, great. What you do is you literally just run it at a very subtle pitch, the length of the structure, and then what we recommend is either a rainwater barrel, 55-gallon drum. Some people will even pour cisterns underground where the water pools, and then you can actually run a little pump, like a little sump pump, and that can be your irrigation. It's pretty neat. We do not sell, per se, a kit for that. I have actually recently had a number of people who use our hydroponic channels for that application, which is really interesting, but they are organic growers, and so they need to use food-certified materials to harvest the water, and so we can, they were thinking outside of the box, but it was great. Works really well for them. A question on our microtubing. Yes, David, we carry some Netafim products. In terms of Pin Perfect, if I don't have it stock, I can probably special request it for you. Just send me an email with quantities and the SKU number. I have a question from Don. What is the minimum height of a high tunnel? That's a great question. And to give you a little history of high tunnel, I'm going to back up. High tunnels essentially grew out of cold frames, which grew out of low tunnels. Many years ago, folks realized that throwing a frost blanket over their crops provided a few extra degrees of temperature control. Certain crops didn't do well with the fabric resting directly on them, so that people started bending little bits of wire and resting the frost blanket over them. Well, they said, hey, this is pretty productive. Let's make something a little bigger. So low tunnels evolved into cold frames, which were 8, 10, maybe 12 foot wide. And then as engineering improved, now we're able to go 30 and 35 foot wide. So when you're asking about the minimum height of a high tunnel, I have structures as small as 6 foot tall to as tall as 15 foot in the center. It's oftentimes driven by the width of the structure, but we can talk about that. All right. I have a question from Ken. What is the best way to attach 6 mil plastic to the high tunnel pipes to prevent tearing? My favorite way, Ken, is I'm not sure if you already have your frame up, but my favorite attachment mechanism is U-channel and Z-wire. It's also known as wiggle wire. It's an 1.5-inch aluminum extrusion, which you screw down running the length of your frame. The plastic fits into the channel, and then the wire locks it down. If you're also on our FarmTech website right now, the stock number for U-channel is 102197. I know it by heart because we sell so much of it. Scary. But anyhow, there's actually a little flash video on our website. When you find that stock number, you can view its installation. It's pretty helpful. All right, next question. Dave, I do not have any information on pouring cisterns. I would just say the most common is a 55-gallon drum. You dig a hole, you drop it in the ground, put a lid on it, and then run your gutters into them. We have a question from Cynthia. Do you offer insect barriers for the sides? Yes, we do. We have a couple of products. We actually have one product called insect netting, which is very specific. What I will say is that insect netting does slow airflow, and that's really important to think about when you're planning for your greenhouse or high tunnel. I typically will not recommend full insect screening because it blocks so much airflow. Another solution is a shade cloth, a really lightweight mesh shade cloth, which we actually sell, but rather than using it to shade the tunnel, you're going to be using that to prevent insects coming in, and that's going to allow a bit more airflow than the netting. And then past that, we have some folks in climates where like deer are rampant and rabbits are rampant. I have a lot of folks who will actually buy hex netting, like chicken wire essentially, and run it along the inside of their roll-up sides to prevent critters from getting inside. Question from Pam, do you have videos that show construction of the high tunnel? Yep. Check base with me. I have a number of customers who have sent me blogs of building their tunnels. We have quick links as well. If you go to Growers Supply on YouTube, we have a number of photos and videos there. We have a question from Donna regarding a premium round style high tunnel. I hope you're going to enjoy it, Donna. It's very exciting. What is the easiest way to roll up the ends of the tunnel? Well, Donna, I can speak from personal experience. I actually have a premium. The easiest way is running the zipper up, the center zipper up straight, and then the other side zippers. If you're having a hard time reaching the center, you should have been sent what's called a zipper extension pole. It's essentially a 5-foot piece of pipe with a rope cleat on the bottom, and that rope cleat will lock the zipper in place, and so you can roll that zipper up, because I know it is pretty, if you're in a 30 wide, it's about 12 foot at the center. So take a look for that. If you're not finding it, give me a ring. I can send one to you, but it's essentially just an arm extension for you. All right, folks. Oops, sorry, I'm spilling my water. I have a couple more questions here. A question from Caroline. Can you tell us more about the grants available for high tunnels? Caroline, I actually hosted a webinar a few weeks ago. It is called the NRCS Equip Program. You can email me after this presentation, and I can send you a link to it. Your first step, though, is to contact your local NRCS agent. I can even help you find them, but feel free to email me after the presentation. A question from George, what is the ground post size of the high tunnel? Ground post is going to be dependent on the model. All of our post lengths are 3 foot. So every time we ship a high tunnel, the ground post anchors are 3 feet long. And the idea is that you drive them about 2.5 feet into the ground, leaving about 6 inches above grade. And then your rafter leg slides over and bolts too. Gauge and diameter is going to be based on the gauge and diameter of the rafters themselves. So for instance, if you're in a 2-inch pipe rafter, the ground post will be slightly smaller so that the rafter leg can slide over and bolt to it. Does the NRCS offer grant funding on greenhouses? No. However, they do offer grant funding on high tunnels. And a high tunnel is very simply a pared down greenhouse. So when you apply for the NRCS program, if they offer you a grant, you can utilize the structure for the 3-year contract length as a tunnel and then later refit it to utilize it as a greenhouse. A question from Donald, and this is a good question, Don. What would you recommend for aquaponics, high tunnel or polycarbonate structure, California? Depends on what fish you're growing and depends on what methods you're using. I am more than happy to talk with you about that. I have a lot of hydroponic experience, and I've been learning quite a bit more about the aquaponics. The trick with aquaponics is you need to preserve warm water temperatures for the fish, but you can't exceed certain air temperatures for the plants. So generally, I prefer a greenhouse. Doesn't need to be polycarbonate, but you will need to run heaters and fans to preserve temperatures. But we can do that with films. I can talk to you more specifically offline, though. Question from Brian. Do you need sunblock in the summer for high tunnels? Depends on where you're located and how many hours of light. We'll have folks in Missouri where, really flat sections of Missouri where it's just straight sun all day. Yeah, you're going to need to shade it. We have two types of shade. One is a liquid shade, which is a paint-on. It's like a white paint that slowly rinses off with rainfall. It's inexpensive. Or we have more permanent shade cloths themselves that you pull over. Let's see here. It looks like several of you have lost audio. We are going to be recording this and emailing it out at a later date. I apologize, not sure what's going on, but we will be in touch with the slides and audio later. Let's see here. I have a question from Charles regarding pollination method inside of a structure. It's a great question. A lot of commercial growers, quite honestly, buy boxes of bees. Do a Craigslist search, you'll find them this time of year. That's true. It's literally just a box of bees. People will ship them to you. You crack a couple holes in it, drop the box into your greenhouse or tunnel, and it's like you have your homemade bee's nest. It works incredibly well. For those of you that don't want to bring in bees, I have a number of people planting wildflowers around the property where the greenhouse is located. And I mean really up close to the structure. So when you roll up the sides, you already have these lovely flowers bringing in bees and such, and that works very, very well. A question from George, is double poly allowed in the NRCS? In some states, yes. In other states, no. In fact, that's something you need to have a conversation with your rep specifically because that language will be built into your contract. Sometimes they'll let you, sometimes they won't. All right. Donna, another question about your roll-up ends. Yep, you really do need a ladder. It's just so tall. What you're going to find for the most part, though, you're not going to be raising and lowering it all that often. Pretty well come May when it stays warm, you're just going to keep it in the up position and leave it there. But if there's a lot of up and down, I just typically roll my sides up. I leave the ends stationary. Question on the film on roll-up sides. How does it hold up? Well, really well. I mean, if you have the budget for it, does a woven tarp style material last longer? Of course, it's just thicker. But typically, I've found that film on my houses, those sides last just as long as the roof, and we typically replace ours every 5 years. You will start seeing some wear patterns if there's a lot of wind, where it rubs on the rafters. We've got a $15 patch, though, which is pretty well gold in my book because it really gets you through seasons. A question regarding purchasing a high tunnel now, but potentially not using it for a while. The benefit of doing that now is you know what the price is now. For those of you that have followed our catalog for the last couple of years have seen there have been quite a few increases in the last couple of years because of the steel market. It's balanced out, but 2010 was rocky. The steel prices went up precipitously. So if you have the budget for it now, I'd say buy it. You can just keep it palletized, throw a tarp over it, and wait till you're ready to build it. Do you have to close the tunnel at night? Okay, question on closing the tunnel. That really depends. The cheapest, fix is a $10 high-low memory thermometer. You put it somewhere near the outside edge of the tunnel. How cold is it getting at night? And how comfortable do you feel with that temperature with the crops you're growing? It's really crop specific. We generally do close ours up at night. It's the premium models have a very easy gearbox mechanism, so raising and lowering it is quite straightforward. Question from David. Do you have plastic mulch with pre-cut slits, and do you have equipment that lays the plastic? We do carry the plastic mulch, Dave, from 1 mil all the way up to 10 mil. We have a number of thicknesses. None of it is pre-slit, and the equipment for laying you can usually find, like, it's usually an attachment for the back of a tractor, so we don't sell that. It's just too heavy to ship, but we do certainly carry the mulch. Question regarding film breakdown if stored. Yeah, that's a great question, actually. If you intend to buy a tunnel and then not erect it, what we would take notes to that, and when we ship it to you, we would ship it on a rounded core rather than folded, and we would tell you to make sure it wasn't in the light. The UV is really what breaks film down, so if you're not building it right away, just store it in a garage or a barn. Another question. I'm in northwest Colorado, and the wind comes directly from the west, and it's very strong. Can high tunnels stand up to strong winds coming directly onto the flat side? So, Don, I think I need a bit more information. Do you mean the gable end was oriented towards the west, or the long side? And also, please tell me about the high tunnel that failed. Was it a gable style or a round style? And then I'll respond to your question. Do you need to provide entrance for beneficial insects or birds? I plan to cover with chicken wire up to 4 feet to keep out deer. Ken, I think chicken wire is absolutely adequate. I don't think you're going to have any issues. Obviously, airflow is of utmost importance. You do need to allow the air to move in and out of the tunnel. So some folks get almost too aggressive about keeping any pests out, and then in doing so, they block too much airflow. But I think chicken wire sounds ideal. Question from Bill, will you do a webinar on your hydroponic fodder? We've done one. In fact, go to our Grower Supply YouTube site. So just hop on YouTube, type in Grower Supply, and you'll find the slides and audio already exist there. It's also available on our website. You can email me. I can send you a link. So back to you, Don. Short side to west, long side to south. Okay, so you're saying you had issues with the gable end towards the west. Did you have end framing, and also what was the width of the structure? A question from Dave. I'm in northwest Iowa. Would you install the high tunnel north to south or east to west? That's a great question. A lot of folks have concern over orientation, and it's because they've been raised thinking about greenhouses. High tunnel orientation is different than greenhouses. You can follow some of the same guidelines, but in a greenhouse you have fans that are doing the ventilation for you. In a high tunnel, you need to be maximizing your natural ventilation. So generally, I say don't look at north, south, east, west. Look at where is the prevailing breeze coming from, and am I opening up my sidewalls? If my sidewalls are opening up, I want the length of the tunnel oriented towards that prevailing wind so you can get the breeze moving across the tunnel. Question from John. How is a high tunnel shipped? Great question. High tunnels are shipped on pallets by commercial freight carriers. Majority of the country we use Conway freight, and for the most part, I mean, they do a lovely, lovely job. We do need you there to sign for it, and it's easiest if you have something with forks to remove it, but we've had plenty of people just back their pickup truck to it and bring it down like that. All right, any other questions for me? These are some great questions. And again, anything you haven't gotten to today, please feel free to email me. Alrighty, well, my voice is about to go. I was very, very pleased that all of you chose to join us, and look forward to working with you. Any questions that I wasn't able to answer because of our time limit, please just send them along to me. I'll be back at my desk here in about 10 minutes, and we look forward to working with you.